Olympic dream shattered. On September 25, 2025, 19-year-old Naufal Takdir Albari died at G.A. Zakharine Hospital in Penza, Russia, 12 days after a catastrophic training accident. The Indonesian gymnast had traveled to Russia to train at a national team camp, preparing for the World Championships scheduled to be held in Jakarta. The facility offered elite-level coaching and equipment that would help him pursue his Olympic dreams. During a training session in early September, Albari attempted a complex element on the high bar. The skill required precise timing and exceptional body control. His execution went wrong mid-rotation. He fell awkwardly, his body twisting as he dropped into the foam pit below. The safety equipment designed to cushion falls could not prevent the devastating impact to his neck. Emergency medical personnel rushed him to the hospital, where surgeons performed emergency procedures. The cervical trauma proved severe. Medical teams fought to save him for 12 days in intensive care. Despite their efforts, the injuries were too catastrophic. He died on September 25th. Russian Gymnastics Federation Vice President Vasily Titov stated after their investigation that the athlete was not prepared to perform such a complex element, highlighting the dangers of attempting skills beyond training readiness. The vault tragedy. On May 5, 1988, 15-year-old Julissa Gomez was practicing her Yurchenko vault during warm-ups at the World Sports Fair in Tokyo, Japan. She was preparing for the competition finals later that day. The vault technique required a round-off onto the springboard, followed by a back handspring onto the vaulting horse. She had been struggling with this element. During her second warm-up attempt, her foot slipped off the springboard. Without proper lift, she hurtled toward the vaulting horse at high speed. She slammed headfirst into the apparatus with devastating force. Her neck broke instantly, and she was paralyzed from the neck down. Medical staff transported her to a Tokyo hospital, where doctors performed an emergency tracheotomy. Then, a catastrophic error occurred. The oxygen hose connected to her respirator became disconnected. The problem went undiscovered for 15 hours. The extended oxygen deprivation caused cardiac arrest, and she fell into a coma. The U.S. military transported her home to Houston by aircraft. She remained in the coma for 3 years, never regaining consciousness. She died on August 8, 1991, from complications. Her death led to extensive safety reviews of vaulting techniques and equipment, contributing to the eventual replacement of the traditional vaulting horse with the safer vaulting table in 2001. College stars fall. On Friday evening, November 8, 2019, 20-year-old Melanie Coleman was training at New Era Gymnastics in Hamden, Connecticut. The Southern Connecticut State University junior was a nursing student with a bright future ahead. She had performed uneven bars routines countless times during her accomplished gymnastics career. The off-campus facility was where her team regularly practiced. Coleman was working through her bars routine that evening, with teammates and coaching staff present. She executed her movements with the precision developed through years of training. Then, she fell from the uneven bars. She struck the ground with tremendous force. The impact caused catastrophic spinal cord injury. Her teammates immediately called for emergency help. Responders arrived quickly and assessed her critical condition. They transported her to Yale New Haven Hospital, where medical teams evaluated the damage. The spinal injury was not survivable. Her family made the difficult decision to donate her organs to help others. She died on Sunday, November 10, 2019, 2 days after the accident. The gymnastics community honored her memory with tributes emphasizing safety awareness and the risks athletes accept in pursuit of their sport. Soviet sacrifice. On July 3, 1980, 20-year-old Elena Mukina was training at the Minsk Palace of Sport in the Soviet Union. The Olympics were just 2 weeks away in Moscow. She had broken her leg the previous year, but was rushed back into training despite incomplete recovery. Her coach, Mikhail Klimenko, demanded she practice the Thomas Salto, an extremely dangerous skill involving a 1.5 back somersault with 1.5 twist. She had repeatedly warned that attempting this skill could cause her to break her neck. During floor exercise training, Mukina launched into the Thomas Salto. The complex double backflip required perfect rotation. She under-rotated. Her body came down at the wrong angle, and she landed directly on her chin with devastating force. 3 cervical vertebrae broke instantly. She was paralyzed from the neck down, unable to move anything below her head. Upon waking after breaking her neck, her first words were, "Thank God I won't be going to the Olympics." She spent the next 26 years confined to bed, completely dependent on caregivers for every basic need. She died on December 22, 2006, from complications related to her quadriplegia. Her tragic case became a symbol of the Soviet sports system's willingness to sacrifice athletes for glory, and the Thomas salto was eventually removed from the women's code of points due to its extreme danger. The invisible death. In May 2021, Séverine Jalla Abaka was training in Cameroon 3 days before the African Championships were set to begin. She represented her nation on the gymnastics team and was preparing alongside her teammates for the upcoming competition. The training session focused on perfecting routines that would be performed on the international stage. She was practicing on the uneven bars when she fell during her routine. The impact caused a fatal neck injury. Emergency surgery was performed, and initially the procedure appeared successful. She regained consciousness after the operation, and her condition seemed stable enough that her teammates departed for the African Championships, believing she would recover. However, her condition began to deteriorate over the following days. Medical complications developed that doctors could not reverse. Approximately 1 week after the accident, she passed away. Her death received minimal international media coverage, with few major gymnastics publications reporting the tragedy. By the way, if you find this informative, I cover stories like these regularly. Consider subscribing if you'd like to see more. Now back to the video. Tumbling trampoline tragedy. On Thursday evening, June 18, 2009, at 8:10 p.m., 19-year-old Michelle Maitland was attending her adult gymnastics class at Gymnastics Townsville in Queensland, Australia. She was taking turns with another gymnast, Tacinta Thorogood, practicing sequences on the tumble track, an elevated tumbling track. The coach, Robert Crane, was positioned a few meters away from the end of the equipment, but was not watching her at the critical moment. Maitland performed a sequence that included round-off backhand springs and twisting elements. She developed massive momentum during the twist. Her feet touched just inside the yellow crash mat, but the force propelled her backward. She launched beyond the mat onto the exposed concrete floor behind the equipment. She struck her head on the concrete surface with devastating impact. The collision caused massive skull fractures. Emergency responders arrived and transported her unconscious to Townsville Hospital. Medical teams worked to save her, but the injuries were too severe. She was declared brain dead and pronounced deceased at 6:10 a.m. on June 19, 2009, approximately 10 hours after the accident. Court ruled the death entirely preventable, fining Gymnastics Townsville $70,000 for safety violations, including inadequate matting and insufficient supervision. The PE lesson. In March 2013, 12-year-old Trevin Hope Joslin from Thorpe Marriott was participating in a physical education lesson at Taverham High School in Norfolk, England. The class involved basic flight gym exercises. During the final 10 to 15 minutes of the session, students were allowed to choose their own equipment for practice. Trevin selected the pommel horse. She had several successful attempts running up to the apparatus and vaulting over. On her final attempt, she approached the pommel horse as she had done before. Her right foot caught the front of the equipment. She tumbled forward and landed face down on the crash mat below. Her friends gathered around, initially thinking she was just winded from the impact. Then they realized she could not speak. Pastoral care supervisor Lynn Hammond immediately began performing CPR. Emergency responders transported Trevin by ambulance, but her condition deteriorated during transport. She died 1 week later, on March 19, 2013, from a hyperextension neck injury. The inquest concluded accidental death, with the pathologist confirming that even without her pre-existing spinal osteomyelitis condition, the neck injury would have been fatal, though the school had failed to communicate her medical condition to PE teachers. European Championship hopes. In February 2006, 23-year-old Chris Fordham was training at Jumpers Rebound Centre in Gillingham, Kent, England. The Welsh champion trampolinist was preparing for the European Championship trials. The training session focused on perfecting dismounts from the trampoline, a critical element for competitive success. Fordham launched into his dismount sequence. The first attempt went wrong. He under-rotated and landed off balance on the mat. Despite the mistake, he was determined to master the skill. He attempted the dismount again moments later. He launched into a backward somersault but misjudged the takeoff angle. His trajectory was wrong from the start. He overshot the landing area completely and came down hard on his back on unprotected ground beyond the safety mat. His head struck the surface with brutal force. Emergency responders rushed him to a nearby hospital where he was placed on life support. He had sustained severe head and spinal injuries. Medical teams worked to stabilize him, but he never regained consciousness. 9 days later, doctors confirmed irreversible brain damage, and his family made the decision to withdraw life support. His death occurred as he prepared for European Championship trials, ending the career of a Welsh champion and highlighting the risks even experienced athletes face when landing areas lack adequate safety coverage. Competition floor. On Saturday afternoon, January 17, 2004, 15-year-old Jordan Bond from Anderson Township, Cincinnati, was competing at the Flip Fest Invitational, held at the Knoxville Convention Center in Tennessee. The Turpin High School sophomore was an accomplished trampolinist, performing in a large invitational competition. Competition officials and spectators filled the venue, watching athletes demonstrate their skills. During his competitive routine, Bond executed a sequence of complex moves on the trampoline. Then, he fell off the equipment. His body dropped from the elevated surface, and he struck his head on the concrete floor surrounding the trampoline. The impact was severe. Emergency responders arrived immediately to assess his injuries. They transported him by ambulance to the University of Tennessee Medical Center, where he was placed in critical care. Medical teams treated him for severe head trauma. They fought to save him over the following days, but the injuries proved too devastating. He died on Monday, January 19, 2004, 2 days after the accident. His family pursued legal action against the venue regarding safety measures, and his death raised questions about floor surface protection at competitive trampoline events. Junior champion collapses. On Thursday evening, October 11, 2001, 13-year-old Ricky Desi from Stafford, Texas, was attending a U.S. junior national team training camp at the Olympic Training Center in Colorado Springs, Colorado. He was ranked second in the nation among gymnasts in the 12 to 13 age category. The camp brought together the country's top young gymnasts with elite coaching staff and state-of-the-art facilities. Desi was practicing on the pommel horse during the regular training session. He moved through his routine with the skill that had earned him his national ranking. Then he suddenly collapsed. There was no fall, no apparent injury. He simply dropped to the gym floor mid-session. He immediately began experiencing seizures. Camp trainers rushed to him and began CPR without delay. Emergency responders arrived quickly and transported him to a nearby hospital. Medical teams worked urgently to determine what had happened and how to save him. Despite all efforts, he was pronounced dead at the hospital. USA Gymnastics men's program director Ron Gallimore confirmed that Desi had no warning signs in his medical history except a recent tonsillectomy, stating that gymnastics is an aerobic sport and incidents of this kind are quite rare. Cause of death was determined to be a sudden cardiac event, shocking the gymnastics community as the 13-year-old national-level athlete had shown no prior warning signs or difficulties during the training session. If this was informative, consider subscribing so you don't miss future content. Thanks for watching.